As soon as Chaba's voice fell, everyone's eyes were fixed on Duanling Tian. Hu Fei stood rooted to the spot, his body trembling slightly. He gritted his teeth, his eyes bloodshot with a fierce, murderous glint, revealing bone-deep hatred. As he stared intently at Duanling Tian, at this moment, Hu Fei was like a venomous snake lurking in the shadows, ready to strike Duanling Tian at any moment. Peak Master Chaba, rest assured. Since I said I would give you an explanation, I will definitely give you an explanation. After putting away the 7th level Thunder concept fragment, Duanling Tian gave Chaba a deep look and smiled. However, I must first thank Peak Master Chaba for this concept fragment you've given me. Chaba's face darkened as Duanling Tian reopened an old wound. He snorted coldly. Enough with the nonsense. I'd like to see how you'll give me an explanation. Peak. Master Chaba, what you want me to explain is simply how I knew that your useless disciple's concept hadn't improved. Duanling Tian spoke while looking at Hu Fei, his words laced with provocation. Hu Fei, who had already directed all his anger at Duanling Tian because his fire concept hadn't improved, now heard Duanling Tian call him useless, and his face changed drastically. Duanling Tian, you're asking for death? At the same time, Hu Fei could no longer hold back. He roared hysterically, then swiftly darted towards Duanling Tian like a lurking venomous snake striking, opening its mouth to bite. Whoosh! As Hu Fei shot out, his elemental energy surged, and combined with his 7th level intermediate fire concept, transformed into soaring flames that enveloped his entire being. At this moment, Hu Fei seemed to have transformed into a giant flaming beast, opening its gaping maw and pouncing on Duanling Tian as if to devour him whole. Above the void, the power of heaven and earth surged, and the heaven and earth phenomenon began to take shape. A total of 180 ancient, horned dragon phantoms moved with Hu Fei's figure, rapidly pouncing on Duanling Tian, creating an incredibly vast momentum. Hu Fei, like a giant flaming beast carrying the power of 180 ancient horned dragons, caused continuous explosions of air wherever he passed, stirring up terrifying waves of air. Strong winds accompanied by airwaves swept through, scattering the furnishings throughout the palace, and some murals even detached from the walls, falling to the ground with a bang. Die. The flaming beast that Hu Fei had transformed into reached Duanling Tian in an instant. After a hysterical roar, he threw a punch that was like a falling meteor. The flame-wrapped punch slammed towards Duanling Tian, as if a giant flaming beast had slapped him, showing no mercy. With the power of that punch, if it landed squarely, Duanling Tian would be crippled if not dead. Hu Fei. Chaba's face changed. He never expected Hu Fei to attack Duanling Tian. In his opinion, how powerful was Duanling Tian's divine ability? He had once easily manipulated Hu Fei and Jin Feng's Nangong brothers. If Hu Fei went up now, wasn't he just asking for a beating? Just as everyone present, including Chaba, thought that Duanling Tian would use his divine ability to create an illusion to confuse Hu Fei, Duanling Tian's actions, however, surprised everyone. Facing the fierce Hu Fei, Duanling Tian neither dodged nor retreated. His elemental energy surged. The vast elemental energy quickly transformed into streaks of purple lightning-like bolts, coiling around his body, making him appear like a thunder god descending. Boom, 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 boom! Continuous low rumbling thunder as the streaks of lightning coiling around Duanling Tian's body clashed, constantly echoed, shaking people's hearts. Boom! A deafening thunderclap instantly resounded throughout the palace, causing the 3 young disciples from Water Peak, Fire Peak, and Earth Peak, who had lower cultivation, to change their expressions and hastily cover their ears. Immediately after, everyone saw that, facing Hu Fei's fierce, flame-laden punch, Duanling Tian also threw a punch, meeting it head-on without dodging, clearly intending to go toe-to-toe with Hu Fei. As Duanling Tian threw his punch, streaks of purple lightning were constantly flickering around his fist, crisscrossing to form a network of electricity. Under everyone's watchful eyes, Duanling Tian's fist and Hu Fei's fist finally collided. Bang! The punch, entwined with streaks of purple lightning like bolts, clashed with the punch, entwined with tendrils of scorching, fire snake-like flames, emitting a terrifying crash. Not only that, boom! 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 The moment Duanling Tian and Zishang's fists collided, the streaks of purple lightning instantly clashed with the scorching flames, emitting terrifying bursts of air. After the air explosions, a series of terrifying, strong winds swept out in all directions, centered on the spot where Duanling Tian and Hu Fei stood. On the floor beneath their feet, countless cracks spread out in all directions, instantly sweeping through the entire palace, forming a giant spiderweb. Not only that, the tremors on the floor shattered many windows on both sides of the palace, and the main pillars in the palace also trembled, as if they could collapse at any moment. However, no one paid attention to any of this. Everyone present was now staring intently at the two young men who were exchanging punches head-on, the robes billowing, hair ties broken, and long hair flying. Boom, 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 under everyone's watchful eyes. The thick purple lightning bolts continuously crisscrossed, emitting bursts of thunder, and then completely overwhelmed the scorching flames, crushing them. Crack! A crisp sound of bones cracking echoed, sending a shiver down everyone's spines. The next moment, everyone saw Duanling Tian's body suddenly lean forward, the dense, crisscrossing purple lightning bolts on his fist crushing the flames on. Hu Fei's fist with destructive force. Hu Fei, at the same time the bone-cracking sound echoed, let out a painful groan. Immediately after, he seemed to be propelled by a massive force, like an arrow released from a bowstring, flying swiftly and crashing heavily against the wall inside the palace. Boom! With a loud bang, Hu Fei's body slid down the wall and fell to the ground, curling. Up in pain, trembling. Hu Fei, unable to catch his breath, spat out more than a dozen mouthfuls of congested blood, which formed a crimson stream beside him, a shocking sight. This feeling, it's quite exhilarating. Just as the entire hall fell into a dead silence, a faint voice suddenly broke it. It was Duanling Tian, who, after sending Hu Fei flying with a punch and the dense crisscrossing lightning bolts on his fist disappearing, gently stretched his arm and muttered to himself. For a moment, everyone present was petrified. Quite exhilarating. When everyone came back to their senses, except for Fire Peak Master Chaba, whose face changed drastically as he rushed to Hu Fei to check on his injuries, everyone else's gaze fell on Duanling Tian. Good lad. Qiyu's eyes lit up, looking at Duanling Tian with a joyful expression. Just now, seeing Hu Fei attack Duanling Tian, he had originally thought Duanling Tian would use his divine ability to create an illusion to deal with Hu Fei. Never expected that Duanling Tian not only didn't use his divine ability, but also met Hu Fei's punch head-on, sending him flying with a single blow. Duanling Tian's cultivation was comparable to Hu Fei's, both at the 7th level of the void-prying stage. However, the concepts they had comprehended were not on the same level at all. Hu Fei had comprehended the 7th level, intermediate fire concept, and the single thunder concept that Duanling Tian had just displayed, since it could completely overwhelm Hu Fei, had to be at least the 8th level intermediate thunder concept, or even possibly the 9th level intermediate thunder concept. Duanling Tian, you actually comprehended such a powerful thunder concept? Huang Danyu stared with wide eyes, looking at Duanling Tian with a slightly dazed expression. He was completely stunned by the strength Duanling Tian had just displayed. That punch, like a thunder god striking, instantly sent the fierce Hu Fei flying. Duanling Tian's move was clean and decisive. Even the heaven and earth phenomenon above his head didn't have time to fully form. At least the 8th level intermediate thunder concept. Guo Chong's eyes narrowed, and a hint of surprise couldn't help but appear on his face as he looked at Duanling Tian. Duanling Tian, a disciple of Wood Peak, an anomaly with a divine ability, cultivated to the 7th level of the void-prying stage, and comprehended the 3rd level intermediate wind concept. This was his understanding of Duanling Tian before today. Before today, in his opinion, Duanling Tian's strength relied more on his divine ability. Without the divine ability, Duanling Tian would not only be inferior to his 2 direct disciples, but even to Fire Peak's Hu Fei, Duanling Tian would be significantly lacking. However, today, Duanling Tian had given him a tremendous shock. Without using his divine ability, with just one punch, he went head-to-head and sent the preemptive, advantageous Hu Fei flying, cleanly and without any hesitation. So this Duanling Tian not only comprehended the wind concept, but also the thunder concept. His 3rd level intermediate wind concept was just a weaker concept he comprehended. The intermediate thunder concept, above the 8th level that he comprehended, is his true trump card, Tengu gasped, muttering. I even thought his strongest concept was the 3rd level intermediate wind concept before. Now it seems he must have improved his thunder concept during this visit to the Profound Array. Yuvong took a deep breath, which means before he entered the Profound Array, his intermediate thunder concept was already at the 6th or 7th level, because when Duanling Tian first arrived at the Wood Peak of the 5 elements sect, he had demonstrated his wind concept. Therefore, the fact that he had comprehended the 3rd level intermediate wind concept was no secret to the peak masters of the other peaks. While Tiangu and Yufeng were surprised, the other young disciples of the Five Elements sect were also momentarily stunned. Duanling Tian is so strong. I originally thought he only had his innate ability to rely on, but I never expected that, even without his innate ability, he could be this powerful. In the past, I only heard that he had comprehended the third-level intermediate wind concept. Now it seems he has hidden his true strength very well. The lightning concept he comprehended, which allowed him to send Hu Fei flying with one punch, must be at least the 8th-level intermediate lightning concept, or even the 9th-level intermediate lightning concept. Including Tian Zhen and Tan Huan, the young disciples looked at Duanling Tian with a hint of apprehension. This Duanling Tian actually comprehended such a powerful lightning concept? Nangong Yi raised an eyebrow, his expression slightly grave. If he uses his lightning concept and third-level intermediate wind concept, even if he doesn't use his innate ability, unless I comprehend the first-level advanced water concept, I won't be his match. At this moment, Nangong Yi felt a heavy pressure. Although he could clearly sense a significant change in his water concept after coming out of the profound transformation array, he had no idea how much it had actually improved. Only by demonstrating it would he know the exact level his water concept had reached. But one thing was certain, it was at least the 9th-level intermediate water concept. Or perhaps it was the first-level advanced water concept, also known as the void transformation concept. Nangong Chen stood beside Nangong Yi, his gaze fixed on Duanling Tian, his eyes burning with intense battle intent, as if he couldn't wait to fight Duanling Tian for 300 rounds. In a corner of the palace, in the distance, after Chabai fed Hu Fei a healing pill, Hu Fei's injuries gradually recovered. Hu Fei's face was very grim. His gaze, which inadvertently swept over the purple figure in the distance, contained not only a bone-deep hatred, but also a trace of apprehension from the bottom of his heart. If he had suffered a loss today, due to Duanling Tian's innate ability, he would have had no choice but to accept it, because it wasn't the first time he had suffered a loss due to Duanling Tian's innate ability. However, today he was defeated by Duanling Tian head-on, and that too after he had taken the initiative and gained the upper hand. For a moment, a sense of powerlessness rose in his heart, along with endless resentment. If it weren't for Duanling Tian tampering with the profound transformation array, I would have already comprehended the 9th-level intermediate fire concept. If I had comprehended the 9th-level intermediate fire concept, why would I need to fear him? Thinking of this, Hu Fei's hatred for Duanling Tian deepened even further. In his heart, he was almost certain that Duanling Tian had tampered with the profound transformation array, which was why his fire concept had not improved at all. In his opinion, if Duanling Tian hadn't tampered with it, he would never have lost to Duanling Tian just now. Therefore, he hated Duanling Tian. He wished he could tear Duanling Tian to pieces and scatter his ashes. Master. Hu Fei looked up at Chabai, who was close by, his eyes reddening, tears welling up, and he said in a trembling voice, "You must get justice for me. It was Duanling Tian. He ruined me, preventing me from comprehending the 9th-level intermediate fire concept in the profound transformation array." By the end, Hu Fei's face was filled with intense hatred. "Don't worry." Chabai nodded, his face gloomy. Even if Hu Fei hadn't said anything, he wouldn't let Duanling Tian off easily. Duanling Tian had first humiliated his personal disciple during the Five Peaks battle, then caused his personal disciple to gain nothing in the profound transformation array, and even swindled him out of a 7th-level lightning concept fragment. Now he had severely injured his personal disciple again. This was a provocation, a naked provocation. He, Chabai, had never been provoked like this since becoming the peak master of the Fire Peak of the Five Elements sect. Duanling Tian. Chabai slowly walked towards Duanling Tian, his eyes flashing with cold light. "Now, you can explain why you knew Hu Fei gained nothing in the profound transformation array? Or perhaps you used some means to cause Hu Fei to gain nothing in there." By the end, Chabai's tone revealed a bone-chilling coldness. As soon as Chabai spoke, everyone, including Chi Yu, turned their gaze to Duanling Tian. In fact, they were also very curious about what Chabai was saying now. Hu Fei gained nothing. In the profound transformation array, no one knew about this beforehand, including Hu Fei himself, yet Duanling Tian was able to say it as if he had foreknowledge. "Peak Master Chabai, what you're saying is giving me too much credit. Do you really think a mere youngster like me could tamper with the profound transformation array left behind by a martial emperor powerhouse?" Duanling Tian shook his head, looking at Chabai as if he were looking at an idiot. "Humph!" Chabai snorted. Stop making excuses. If it wasn't your doing, how could you be so sure that Fei gained nothing in the profound transformation array? Or perhaps you're going to tell me that you can discern the level of Hu Fei's fire concept before he even demonstrates it? By the end, Chabai's face was full of sarcasm. Peak Master Chabai, I can answer your question right now. Duan Lingtian was unfazed by the sarcasm on Chabai's face. As soon as he finished speaking, his gaze fell on Nangong Yi, who was not far away. Nangong Yi, could you do me a favor? Nangong Yi, seeing Duan Lingtian look over, felt a little strange, then heard Duan Lingtian's words and nodded. Speak. He didn't have a good impression of Duan Lingtian, but he didn't have a bad one either. Now, demonstrate your transformed water concept. You only need to show it briefly. Remember to retract it in time before it triggers any natural phenomena. Duan Lingtian said to Nangong Yi. As soon as Duan Lingtian spoke, the entire place fell silent. Some people vaguely guessed what Duan Lingtian wanted to do, but they couldn't be sure as it was truly incredible. This included Nangong Yi himself. Interesting. Interesting. Nangong Yi smiled, then took a step forward. Speaking of which, after I came out of the profound transformation array, I myself don't know how much my comprehended water concept has improved. I'm very curious if anyone can truly discern the level my water concept has reached when I only briefly demonstrate it before it even has a chance to trigger natural phenomena. As soon as he finished speaking, the air around Nangong Yi's body began to tremble slightly under everyone's gaze. After a moment, wisps of faint water mist rose in the air, swirling around Nangong Yi's body, constantly rolling and rising. That's enough. As soon as the water mist appeared, Duan Lingtian spoke. That's it? Hearing Duan Lingtian's words, Nangong Yi immediately retracted his water concept and asked with a surprised expression. He had only been building up momentum and hadn't yet truly demonstrated his water concept. The power of heaven and earth hadn't even had time to react. Duan Lingtian nodded, then looked at Chabai and asked calmly, Peak Master Chabai, can you tell what level Nangong Yi's water concept has reached since he came out of the profound transformation array? Hearing Duan Lingtian's words, Chabai couldn't help but sneer. Can you tell then? Chabai's words clearly admitted that he couldn't tell. Yes, I can tell. Under Chabai's stunned gaze, Duan Lingtian nodded in response, then looked at Nangong Yi and said with a smile, Nangong Yi, your water concept has now reached the 9th level intermediate stage. 9th level intermediate. As soon as Duan Lingtian spoke, everyone, including Chabai and Hu Fei, turned their gaze to Nangong Yi, their eyes filled with surprise. Year, demonstrate your water concept. To see if Duan Lingtian is correct. Guo Chong said to Nangong. Yi, at this moment, even he, the sect master of the 5-element sect, couldn't help but show a hint of surprise in his eyes. It was the first time he had heard of someone being able to discern a person's concept under such circumstances. Yes, master. Hearing Guo Chong's words, Nangong Yi didn't dare to delay. The air around his body trembled again, wisps of water mist appeared, and finally transformed into a vast expanse of blue waves, enveloping his entire being. Whoosh! At the same time, above the void above Nangong Yi's head, natural phenomena gradually condensed and formed, finally transforming into 100 ancient horned dragon phantoms, using only concept to draw upon the power of heaven and earth, condensing into 100 ancient horned dragon phantoms. This was precisely the symbol of the 9th level void transformation concept. It really is the 9th level intermediate water concept. Tianzhen couldn't help but exclaim. After retracting his gaze from the 100 ancient horned dragon phantoms, he immediately looked at Duan Lingtian, his eyes clearly filled with astonishment. It really is the 9th level intermediate water concept? Nangong Yi sighed, seemingly a little disappointed and disheartened. Apparently, his goal was the void transformation concept. But soon, Nangong Yi recovered and looked at Duan Lingtian with the others, while also asking curiously, Duan Lingtian, how did you figure it out? Apart from Chabai and Hu Fei, whose faces were somewhat gloomy, everyone else also showed a hint of doubt. I'll explain that later. Duan Lingtian smiled, then looked at Chabai. Peak Master Chabai, are you satisfied with my explanation? It was when Hu Fei briefly demonstrated his fire concept that I saw his fire concept had not changed at all, Duan Lingtian said. Who doesn't know that after Nangong Yi came out of the profound transformation array, he either comprehended the 9th level intermediate water concept or the 1st level advanced water concept? You must have just guessed, Chabai said disdainfully. Just guessing? Chabai's words made Duan Lingtian pause, then he couldn't help but laugh. At this moment, he also noticed that as Chabai spoke, more than half of the people present looked at him with a hint of doubt. Clearly, they had all been swayed by Chabai's words. No matter if you say Nangong Yi comprehended the 9th level intermediate wind concept or the 1st level advanced wind concept, you still have a 50% chance of guessing correctly. Chabai looked at Duanling. Tianan sneered. In my opinion, you just got lucky. Look at mine. Suddenly, a cold voice came, overriding Chabai's laughter. It was Nangong Chen, who had been standing by the side, taking a step forward and looking at Duanling Tian, speaking for a rare occasion. As soon as Nangong Chen spoke, everyone, including Duanling Tian, turned their gaze to him, making him the focus of attention. I wonder if Senior Brother Chen comprehended the 9th level intermediate Earth concept, or the 1st level advanced Earth concept after coming out of the profound array. Just now, Peak Master Chabai said that Duanling Tian's identification of Senior Brother Yi's concept was just a guess. This time, I wonder if Duanling Tian can guess correctly. Several young disciples of the Five Elements sect, including Tianzhen and Tanhuan, kept their eyes shifting between Duanling Tian and Nangong Chen. Duanling Tian! Huang Danyo looked at Duanling Tian, his face filled with strong confidence, and said loudly, if you can identify the concept that Nangong Chen comprehended again, and Peak Master Chabai still says you're just guessing, then look at mine. As soon as Huang Danyu said this, Chabai's expression changed. Wasn't this clearly implying that he was deliberately slandering them? Let's talk about it after he can identify the concept that Nangong Chen comprehended. Chabai sneered. Duanling Tian nodded and smiled at Huang Danyu, then looked at Nangong Chen. You can start. Nangong Chen nodded. At the same time, the floor beneath his feet trembled and a yellowish-brown energy rose around his body, emitting waves of vast and majestic aura. That's enough, Duanling Tian said. Nangong Chen heard this and withdrew. His Earth concept, which had not yet activated the power of heaven and earth. Congratulations. You have comprehended the 1st level advanced Earth concept. Duanling Tian congratulated Nangong Chen. With his current spiritual energy, as long as someone's concept aura was released, based on the experience of the rebirth, Martial Emperor's 2 lives, he could easily identify the level of the opponent's concept, just as he could use his spiritual energy to investigate many people's cultivation. 1st level advanced Earth concept. As soon as Duanling Tian's words fell, the scene was dead silent. Guochong, the sect master of the 5 Element sect, was the first to react, his eyes burning as he looked at Nangong Chen. Chen here, you... Before he could finish speaking, the Earth concept around Nangong Chen's body had already risen. The yellowish-brown energy continuously rose, reaching its peak. Whoosh! Above the void, the power of heaven and earth surged, quickly converging into a clearly visible celestial phenomenon, a total of 200 ancient horned dragon phantoms. Solely by concept, it activated the power of heaven and earth, condensing 200 ancient horned dragon phantoms. This was the symbol of the 1st level void transformation concept. It really is the 1st level advanced earth concept. Senior Brother Chen is so strong after coming out of the profound. Hooray, he has continuously advanced 2 levels, comprehending the 1st level advanced earth concept in one go. With Senior Brother Chen's current strength, even without the help of earth force, he is formidable. Once he uses earth force, how terrifying will he become? Tiangu, the Peak Master of Earth Peak, was the first to exclaim, followed by a group of young disciples who couldn't help but whisper. They had one thing in common. Their faces were all filled with shock. Haha. Good! Good! Guochong couldn't help but laugh heartily, seeing his personal disciple make such great progress after entering and exiting the profound array once. Nangong Chen's face remained stern, but Duanling Tian could detect a hint of surprise deep within Nangong Chen's eyes. Clearly, Nangong Chen was not cold on the inside as he appeared on the outside. Congratulations, Sect Master. At this moment, Tiangu and Yufang congratulated Guochong with smiles. Alas, Nangong Yi, standing by the side, glanced at Nangong Chen and couldn't help but sigh. He and Nangong Chen were not only twin brothers, but also born rivals. From childhood, he and Nangong Chen competed in everything, but he always lost more than he won. It had always been like this. It was like an unbreakable curse. Chabai, you wouldn't still think Duanling Tian is just guessing, would you? Chi Yu, the Peak Master of Wood. Peak, after shifting his gaze from Nangong Chen, landed it on Chabai, a sneer playing on his lips as he asked. Chi Yu's voice was not loud, but it reached everyone present. For a moment, everyone's eyes fell on Chabai. Chabai's face darkened slightly. Was Duanling Tian really just guessing? If he had indeed felt that Duanling Tian was just guessing after Duanling Tian identified the specific level of concept that Nangong Yi comprehended, he was now somewhat uncertain. However, at this point, could he show his uneasy feelings? Chabai casually glanced at Chi Yu and snorted, Chi Yu, you're right. Even now, I still think he's just guessing. Guessing correctly twice in a row is not that rare. What if it's 3 times? Huang Danyu, who had been standing by and couldn't bear it anymore, stepped forward, looked at Chabai with disdain, and sneered, We'll talk about it when he can identify your current concept. A cold glint flashed deep in Chabai's eyes, but his face remained calm as he said indifferently, Duanling Tian. Huang Danyu didn't waste any time either, looking at Duanling Tian and calling out to him. Duanling Tian nodded, but he didn't rush to let Huang Danyu display his earth concept. Instead, he looked at Chabai and said coldly, Peak Master Chabai, before I identify the specific level of Danyu's improved concept, I want to confirm something. If I can identify the specific level of Danyu's improved concept, will I no longer need to explain to you? Duanling Tian emphasized the word explain heavily with a hint of mockery. As long as you can identify the specific level of Huang Danyu's concept after he came out of the profound array, you only need to identify the concept of one more Fire Peak disciple whom I will bring over, and you won't need to explain anything to me. Chabai's eyes flashed as he said indifferently, Very good. Duanling Tian nodded. The sect master is also here, so I believe you, as the dignified Peak Master of Fire Peak, wouldn't deceive me. Chabai snorted coldly, chilling glint flashing deep in his eyes as if wanting to devour someone. Danyu, begin? Duanling Tian looked at Huang Danyu, and Huang Danyu promptly displayed his earth concept. Of course, as soon as he displayed it, he withdrew it again. The power of heaven and earth was not activated, let alone forming a celestial phenomenon. Haha, Danyu, you really are a monster. Just as Huang Danyu withdrew the briefly displayed earth concept, and everyone's eyes fell on Duanling Tian. Duanling Tian couldn't help but burst into laughter. What? Huang Danyu's eyes lit up, then, as if remembering something, he said excitedly, Could it be that I, Brother Niu, have really comprehended the 9th level intermediate earth concept? If that's true, I, Brother Niu, will be the first genius today to have advanced my concept by 3 levels after coming out of the profound array. It was no secret that Huang Danyu had only comprehended the 6th level earth concept before entering the profound array. Everyone present knew this clearly. As soon as Huang Danyu finished speaking, Chabai had already sneered, Advancing 3 levels? Are you dreaming? Just as Huang Danyu glared angrily at Chabai, Duanling Tian spoke, Danyu, since someone thinks you're dreaming, then let him see clearly the moment your dream becomes reality. I'm very curious what his expression will be then. If he truly comprehends the 9th level intermediate earth concept, I will no longer look for another Fire Peak disciple, and you, Duanling Tian, will no longer need to explain anything to me. Chabai sneered. He absolutely refused to believe that Huang Danyu could advance his 6th level intermediate earth concept to 9th level intermediate earth concept, just by entering the profound array once. You said that. Hearing Chabai's words, Duanling Tian smiled, then looked at Huang Danyu. Danyu, let Peak Master Chabai have a good look at your transformed earth concept. Ha ha ha. Good. Huang Danyu laughed heartily. He trusted Duanling Tian unconditionally. Since Duanling Tian said he had comprehended the 9th level intermediate earth concept, then he must have comprehended the 9th level intermediate earth concept. Under everyone's watchful eyes, waves of yellowish-brown energy surged around Huang Danyu's body, emitting a vast and majestic aura, continuously rising. Whoosh! Above the void, the power of heaven and earth surged, finally converging into a celestial phenomenon, a total of 100 ancient horned dragon phantoms. It really is the 9th level intermediate earth concept. Tiangu couldn't help but exclaim. At this moment, among those present, besides Duanling Tian and Huang Danyu, only Chi Yu was relatively calm, seemingly having already believed what Duanling Tian had just said. The others stared at the celestial phenomenon above. Huang Danyu's head, most of them dumbfounded as if they had witnessed something incredible. Chabai, the Peak Master of Fire Peak, was among the first. Impossible! Impossible! How is this possible? Chabai kept shaking his head, unable to believe that what he was seeing was real. Danyu, it seems you snatched Hufei's fortune inside the profound array. That Hufei, after entering and exiting the profound array once, didn't gain anything. You, on the other hand, advanced your earth concept by 3 levels. Duanling Tian smiled, his smile exceptionally bright. Hufei, who was not far away, already had an extremely ugly expression. Now, hearing Duanling Tian's words, he was so enraged that he spat out blood again with a wah sound. This shows that the profound array has good taste and knows that Brother Niu is a talent with great potential. As for Hufei, he's just an ungrateful wolf. I guess even the profound array doesn't care for him. Huang Danyu grinned, his gaze turning noticeably cold when it landed on Hu Fei. Ugh! Hu Fei had just wiped away the bloodstain from the corner of his mouth when he heard Huang Danyu's words, and he was so enraged that he spat out another mouthful of clotted blood, his face turning extremely pale. Huang Danyu! You're asking for death! Chabai's expression changed and a powerful aura erupted from him, sweeping out and pressing towards Huang Danyu. However, his aura was dispersed before it even got close to Huang Danyu. Whoosh! A figure appeared in front of Huang Danyu. It was Mu Feng's peak master, Qi Yu Bang. As soon as Duanling Tian saw Qi Yu appear in front of Huang Danyu, a loud sound echoed in his ears. Immediately after, he saw Chabai fly backward like an arrow released from a bowstring, smashing through the wall inside the palace and disappearing from his sight. A huge hole in the wall appeared on the surface. Qi Yu! Soon an angry roar came from behind the hole in the wall. Chabai, covered in dust and dirt, returned to the palace, glaring at Qi Yu but not daring to make any move. Get out! Seeing that Chabai dared to return, Qi Yu glared, appearing like an enraged Vajra, his intimidating power fully displayed. Chabai's face darkened. In the end, he gritted his teeth and, taking Hu Fei and another fire-peaked disciple with him, left the palace, disappearing from everyone's sight. Duanling. Tian, to what level has your lightning intent advanced? How about showing it to us? Guochong looked at Duanling Tian. As for what had just happened, it was as if he hadn't seen it, or rather he had completely ignored it. Hearing Guochong's words, everyone present turned their gaze to Duanling Tian, among the 10 young talents, who entered and exited the profound array this time. Aside from Hu Fei, who showed no improvement, Huang Danyu and Nangong Chen had both made significant progress. Before entering, Huang Danyu had comprehended 6th level intermediate Earth Intent. After exiting, he had comprehended 9th level intermediate Earth Intent. Even Duanling Tian couldn't help but be shocked by this. Huang Danyu's progress was beyond his expectations. Perhaps Danyu's physique is more suited to Earth Intent. Therefore, his comprehension in Earth Intent is far beyond what ordinary people can compare to. After searching through the memories of the reincarnation Martial Emperor from 2 lives, Duanling Tian only came up with this answer. Before entering, Nangong Chen had comprehended 8th level intermediate Earth Intent. After exiting, he had comprehended 1st level advanced Earth Intent. Although his Earth Intent had only advanced by 2 levels, the power increase was far beyond what Huang Danyu could achieve. What a joke. 1st level advanced Earth. Intent provided an extra 100 ancient horned dragon power compared to 9th level intermediate Earth Intent. The two were not on the same level at all. However, now, both Huang Danyu and Nangong Chen had their eyes on Duanling Tian. It seems I can't avoid showing it today. Seeing the current situation, Duanling Tian couldn't help but smile bitterly to himself. Under everyone's watchful eyes, the air around Duanling Tian's body suddenly rippled, and then streaks of purple lightning, like electric snakes, appeared, solidified bolts of lightning. The lightning bolts became more and more numerous, constantly colliding with each other, producing dull claps of thunder. This was the lightning intent. Boom, 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 boom. Dull, thunderous roars echoed, and the purple lightning bolts entwining Duanling Tian's body formed electric nets, enveloping him entirely. This made Duanling Tian appear like a god of thunder. The god of thunder descends, terrifying. All directions. Whoosh! Above Duanling Tian's head, the power of heaven and earth fluctuated, and a celestial phenomenon gradually took shape. Shadows of ancient horned dragons appeared, entering everyone's vision. 10 heads, 20 heads, 30 heads. The number of ancient horned dragon shadows continued to increase. Before long, it finally stabilized and stopped increasing. 100 ancient horned dragon power. 9th level intermediate lightning intent. Looking at the 100 ancient horned dragon shadows above the void, Huang Danyu couldn't help but exclaim, 9th level intermediate lightning intent. At once, everyone's gaze once again fell on Duanling Tian. In the depths of their eyes, there was nothing but astonishment. This purple-clothed young man in front of them looked to be about 25 years old. His true age was no more than 30. A martial artist, under 30 years old, comprehending 9th level void prying intent. Although he had the help of the profound array, such comprehension, let alone in a third-rate sect like their 5-element sect, would be considered excellent talent even in those second-rate or even first-rate sects. I never expected that this Duanling Tian not only possesses unfathomable innate abilities, but his comprehension and intent is also so good. He truly lives up to being an anomaly. It is said that anomalies like Duanling Tian, who possess innate abilities, are also called darlings of heaven. darling of heaven, Duanling Tian is truly worthy of the name, including Tian Zhen and Tan Huan, the 4 disciples. Of the Water Peak, an Earth Peak couldn't help but exclaim in admiration. Even the Earth Peak Master Qian Gu and Water Peak Master Yu Feng were no exception. At this moment, their gazes towards Duanling. 10 were somewhat complex. How great would it be if this were a disciple of their Earth Peak or Water Peak? Unfortunately, imagination was beautiful, but reality was cruel. Mu Feng really had good luck this time. The two thought in unison. Duanling Tian, before you entered the profound array, what level of intermediate lightning intent did you comprehend? Chi Yu looked at Duanling Tian and asked curiously. At once, including Guochong, everyone else's gazes also fell on Duanling Tian. They were quite curious about this as well. 7th level. Duanling Tian's eyes flickered. As soon as Duanling Tian finished speaking, Huang Danyu laughed. Duanling Tian, you are stronger than me in every aspect. But this time, the benefits you gained from the profound array are not as good as mine, Brother Niu. Before I, Brother Niu, entered the profound array, I comprehended 6th level intermediate earth intent. After coming out, I comprehended 9th level intermediate earth intent. By the end, Huang Danyu was beaming with joy. Ever since he met Duanling Tian, he had been inferior to Duanling Tian in every aspect, which filled his heart with frustration. Now, finally having an opportunity to surpass Duanling Tian, he felt genuinely happy from the bottom of his heart. Seeing Huang Danyu showing off in front of him, Duanling Tian gave him a side-eye, not bothering to pay attention to him. If Huang Danyu knew that, before he entered the profound array, he had only comprehended low-level lightning intent, who knows what kind of expression he would have. Of course, Duanling Tian wouldn't be so bored as to expose himself. Making a fortune in silence was the way to go. After Huang Danyu's antics, the gazes on Duanling Tian gradually shifted, no longer making him the focus. Duanling Tian, entering and exiting the profound array, and raising his 7th level lightning intent by 2 levels, was considered good, but compared to Huang Danyu and Nanggong Chen, he was somewhat inferior. Of course, this was also because they didn't know the true changes that had occurred to Duanling Tian. If they knew, they would probably be so shocked that they would stand there dumbfounded for an entire day, unable to move. This profound array is truly strange this time. First, it remained open for 60 hours, and then some people inside didn't even gain any benefits. Guochong's brows furrowed. He always felt that there was something fishy about this matter. The profound array being open for 60 hours, could it be related to Hu Fei? After all, among the 10 people who entered the profound array, only Hu Fei had issues, entering for nothing. Tiangu couldn't help but speculate. I think that's possible. Yu Feng nodded in agreement. Indeed. Chi Yu also agreed. Hearing the conversation between the 4 peak masters, Duanling Tian's mouth twitched almost imperceptibly. He hadn't expected it. Unbeknownst to him, Hu Fei had actually taken the blame for him. If Hu Fei knew the truth of all this, he would probably be so enraged that he would vomit 3 liters of blood, or even die. Everyone, you may disperse. We will depart on time in half a month, Guochong added. As soon as he finished speaking, his gaze swept over Chi Yu, Tiangu, and Yu Feng. His later words were clearly directed at the 3 of them. The 3 of them nodded, then each led their peak disciples away. Depart in half a month for the secret treasure left behind by that martial emperor expert. Perhaps the other young disciples of the 5 Elements sect, including Huang Danyu, didn't know what Guochong meant by depart in half a month, but Duanling Tian was perfectly clear. This time, the 5 Elements sect had gone to such great lengths to activate the profound array, undoubtedly for the secret treasure left behind by that martial emperor expert. Inside the secret treasure, there was something the 5 Elements sect desperately wanted to obtain. And what the 5 Elements sect most wanted to obtain was nothing more than the profound fragment that might exist within the martial emperor's secret treasure, which was the key for void-prying realm peak experts to break through to, the martial sovereign realm. These 4 spirit fruits are part of the cultivation resources we received from the sect after our wood peak became the first peak of the 5 Elements sect. There are exactly 2 types, 2 different ones for each of you. On the way back to Wood Peak, Chi Yu raised his hand and 4 spirit fruits appeared in his hand. The 4 spirit fruits were of 2 types, 2 of each. One type was entirely green, permeated with a green luster, emitting a faint, elegant fragrance. The other type was entirely green, permeated with tiny red lines crisscrossing over it. Azure origin fruit? Blood trace fruit? The moment he saw these 2 spirit fruits, Duanling Tian's eyes narrowed and his face showed excited joy. Having searched through the memories of the reincarnation martial emperor, he immediately recognized these 2 spirit fruits. Both were spirit fruits specifically for void-prying realm martial artists. In terms of medicinal power, they were no less potent than the grand origin fruit that he and Huang Dan had consumed earlier. It's like getting exactly what I wished for. Duanling Tian's eyes lit up. Sect leader, are these spirit fruits distributed by the sect? When Huang Dan received the 2 spirit fruits, he curiously asked, then do the other peaks also have them? Of course. Chi Yu nodded. However, the treatment at the other peaks isn't as good as ours at Wood Peak. After all, our Wood Peak is now the number 1 peak of the 5-element sect. This time, the sect elders went out to procure goods and spent a great deal to bid for 10 spirit fruits, specifically for void-prying stage martial artists. These 10 spirit fruits are distributed according to the ranking of the 5 peaks. Our Wood Peak is the first, so we get 4. Gold Peak is second, getting 3. Fire Peak is third, getting 2. Water Peak is fourth, getting 1. As for Earth Peak being the last, they get nothing. Chi Yu finished speaking in one breath. What? As soon as Chi Yu's voice fell, Duanling Tian and Huang Dan couldn't help but be shocked. Earth Peak didn't get a single spirit fruit? Yes. Chi Yu nodded, then sighed. Speaking of which, Earth Peak's current situation is just like our Wood Peak's situation for the past 20 years. There's no difference. Wonder the various peaks of the 5-element sect are desperately trying to climb up and don't want to be the last peak. So, the competition between the 5 peaks of the 5-element sect is so fierce. Duanling Tian took a deep breath and muttered, although he had long known that the competition between the 5 peaks of the 5-element sect was fierce, he hadn't expected it to be so intense, even to the point of being described as tragic. No matter what, for the next 3 years, our Wood Peak will be the number 1 peak of the 5-element sect. No matter what sect resources there are, our Wood Peak will get the largest share first, Chi Yu said with a smile. Duanling Tian and Huang Dan nodded, a smile also appearing on their faces. With these spirit fruits, I imagine you all will be able to raise your cultivation by 1 level in a short time. Half a month later, including you 2, 20 young disciples will leave the 5-element sect with our 5 peak masters. Chi Yu glanced at the spirit fruits in Duanling Tian and Huang Dan hands and slowly said, Peak master? Half a month later, the sect is making such a big fuss. Where are we going? Huang Dan asked with a bewildered expression. Where exactly, you will naturally know in half a month. You must seize the time to cultivate and improve your strength as much as possible. Only by increasing your strength can you better survive in the place you are about to go. By the end, even Chi Yu, the Wood Peak master, couldn't help but look solemn. His words were a reminder to Duanling Tian and Huang Dan. The place they were going in half a month would involve life-threatening dangers. What? Huang Dan face changed drastically, not expecting the place they were going in half a month to be so dangerous. Duanling Tian, however, remained calm, his composure startling. Of course, the reason he could be so calm was that he already knew where they were going in half a month. That place was the secret treasure left by a martial emperor powerhouse, filled with opportunities, but also with certain dangers. Compared to the dangers of that place, the greatest threat came from the young powerhouses who would enter with them. After all, this time, not only people from the 5-element sect would enter the martial emperor's secret treasure, but also, as Duanling Tian knew, the 4 major forces from the regions south of the northern desert, Kangwolf Fort, Blade and Sword Sect, Cloud Sky Temple, and Emotion Severing Sect. Initially, Kangwolf Fort held the 10 Dynasty Martial Competition to select the most outstanding young talents from the 10 dynasties, with the purpose of the secret treasure left by the martial emperor powerhouse. Later, people from the Blade and Sword Sect, Cloud Sky Temple, and Emotion Severing Sect successively arrived at Kangwolf Fort, forcing Kangwolf Fort to share a piece of the pie and taking away many young talents from the 10 dynasties. Originally, he was supposed to go to the Blade and Sword Sect, but an unexpected turn of events occurred on the way, and he was pursued by people from Kangwolf Fort. After the anomaly of the Demon Sealing Tablet, he, in an unconscious state, ended up in the eastern region of the northern desert, and, by chance, entered the Wood Peak of the 5-element sect. No matter what, the 5-element sect has been kind to me. If it weren't for the 5-element sect, I wouldn't have had the opportunity to make such a big breakthrough in the profound transformation array. Although, even if I had gone to the Blade and Sword sect, I would have received similar treatment. I did, after all, enjoy this treatment in the 5-element sect. Duanling Tian's heart stirred. So, this time entering the Martial Emperor's secret treasure, besides seeking some treasures for myself, I will also help the 5-element sect and Wood Peak find what they want. This way, it can be considered repaying this favor. Duanling Tian silently thought to himself. Chi Yu had been watching Duanling Tian and Huang Dan. After he mentioned the dangers of the place they were going in half a month, his gaze never left the two of them. Soon, he saw Huang Danyu's face changed drastically, and he also saw Duanling Tian's calm expression. Comparing the two, the difference was immediately apparent. At this moment, he thought even more highly of Duanling Tian. It's just a pity that neither would peak, nor the five-element sect can bind Duanling Tian. Otherwise, under Duanling Tian's leadership, the five-element sect would surely be able to move towards a future glory that is hard to fathom. As he thought further, Chiyu sighed inwardly. Soon, the three returned to Wood Peak. After Chiyu greeted Duanling Tian and the other, he left. Duanling Tian? At this moment, Huang Danyu recovered from his daze during the journey and looked at Duanling Tian. I noticed you've been quite calm all along. The Peak Master said that the place we're going in half a month will be life-threatening. Aren't you worried? By the end, Huang Danyu couldn't help but voice his question. Worried? What's there to worry about? Duanling Tian shook his head with a smile. Then his gaze sharpened, and he muttered, If you don't enter the tiger's den, how can you catch the tiger cub? If you don't enter the tiger's den, how can you catch the tiger cub? Duanling Tian's voice wasn't loud, but Huang Danyu still heard it. Huang Danyu's eyes flashed, and he forced a smile, asking, Duanling Tian, do you know something I don't? You're quite clever, aren't you? Just from these 8 short words of mine, you can tell that I know something you don't. Duan. Ling Tian couldn't help but laugh and scold. Duanling Tian, if the Peak Master doesn't tell me, you won't either, will you? Huang Danyu looked at Duanling Tian eagerly, his face full of anticipation. I remember earlier, someone was showing off in front of me, saying that after he came out of the profound transformation array, his concept had increased by 3 levels, while mine only increased by 2, so I couldn't compare. To him. Duanling Tian narrowed his eyes, looking at Huang Danyu with a half-smile. Huang Danyu couldn't help but smile bitterly, feeling as if he had shot himself in the foot earlier. Duanling Tian, you wouldn't be so petty, would you? Huang Danyu's face stiffened, and he said with a bitter expression, If I'm not mistaken, in half a month, the place we'll be going with the Peak Master and the others should be a secret treasure left by a Martial Emperor powerhouse. Duanling Tian naturally wouldn't dwell on such a small matter with Huang Danyu. Facing the bitter-faced Huang Danyu, he no longer teased him and revealed what he knew. A secret treasure left by a Martial Emperor powerhouse? Huang Danyu was first stunned upon hearing this, then, after realizing, his pupils couldn't help but shrink. Martial Emperor powerhouse. To him, they only existed in legends, but the terrifying power of a Martial Emperor powerhouse was undeniable. They were powerhouses standing at the pinnacle of the Cloud Continent. Such a powerhouse's secret treasure would naturally not be simple. At some point, Huang Danyu's breathing became rapid. It took him a while to catch his breath, and he stared intently at Duanling Tian, asking, Duanling Tian, are you sure? What? You still don't believe it? Duanling Tian shook his head with a smile. You also have to consider why the high-ranking officials of the Five-Element sect would suddenly activate the profound transformation array to enhance the strength of people like us. Isn't it because they want us to help them find some things in the Martial Emperor's secret treasure? Huang Danyu was silent, but his eyes flickered with a fervent light, muttering to himself, It's truly exciting. There must be many good things in the secret treasure left by a Martial Emperor powerhouse, right? The current Huang Danyu was like a completely different person from the one who was previously wary. As the saying goes, man dies for wealth, birds die for food, which undoubtedly describes the current Huang Danyu. All right, let's go back and cultivate first. Duanling Tian roused Huang Danyu from his dazed state. There's still half a month. Try your best to break through to the 7th level of the void prying stage. Otherwise, you'll have a hard time facing those young powerhouses from other sects. Other sects, too? Huang Danyu, having come to his senses, couldn't help but be startled. Nonsense, Duanling Tian said as a matter of course. Otherwise, what do you think is so dangerous about the secret treasure left by a Martial Emperor powerhouse? The real danger is not the danger within the secret treasure, but the danger from other young powerhouses. Once inside the secret treasure, even if you do obtain some treasure, you must have the ability to keep it. Otherwise, everything you do is destined to be for someone else's benefit. By the end, Duanling Tian's tone became solemn. Huang Danyu took a deep breath upon hearing this and nodded solemnly. Understood. As long as you understand. Let's go, Duanling Tian called out to Huang Danyu, and they flew towards a 3-story pavilion on the mountainside of wood. Peak in the distance. That was their current residence. Duanling Tian, I thought about it carefully, and something seems off. Why would the sect's higher-ups take us young disciples to the secret treasure left by a Martial Emperor powerhouse? Couldn't they just take the older generation of elders? Huang Danyu seemed to have remembered something, and he frowned, asking, The older generation of elders are much stronger than us. If we go, we'll only be cannon fodder in front of the older generation powerhouses from other sects. What if I told you that the secret treasure left by the Martial Emperor powerhouse has an age restriction for those who enter? To Huang Danyu's confusion, Duanling Tian patiently explained, "An age limit? How is it limited?" Huang Danyu looked puzzled. "You should know about the age-measuring pearl, right? As long as you use the age-measuring pearl as a material, supplemented by some other inscription patterns, and combine them into an inscription array, you can completely restrict people above a certain age group from freely entering and exiting the gate covered by the inscription array," Duanling Tian patiently explained. "So that's how it is." Huang Danyu suddenly understood, and at the same time he asked curiously, "According to you, the secret treasure left by that Martial Emperor powerhouse has this kind of inscription array as a restriction?" "Yes." Duanling Tian nodded. "What's the age limit?" Huang Danyu asked curiously. 40 years old, Duanling Tian said. 40 years old? That means only young martial artists can enter? No wonder. Huang Danyu suddenly understood. Recalling Duanling Tian's words just now, he felt a slight, heavy pressure, a pressure that made him feel a little breathless. Then we should hurry back and cultivate. At that time, when the young powerhouses from various sects enter the Martial Emperor's secret treasure, there will definitely be a lot of fighting. After Huang Danyu finished speaking, without waiting for Duanling Tian's response, he transformed into a flash of lightning and entered the 3-story pavilion on the distant mountainside, disappearing from Duanling Tian's sight. This guy... Duan. Ling Tian was startled by Huang Danyu for a moment. Then he couldn't help but smile wryly. He also returned to the 3-story pavilion and went back to his room. Sitting cross-legged on the bed in his room, Duanling Tian didn't dare to hesitate. He put the 2 spirit fruits in his hands into his mouth one by one. The spirit fruits turned into cool liquid, flowing down his throat and into his body. The medicinal properties of the 2 different spirit fruits were naturally not entirely the same. If it were an ordinary martial artist, they would never dare to be as bold as Duanling Tian swallowing 2 different spirit fruits at once, because this could easily cause the medicinal properties of the spirit fruits to clash. Once the medicinal properties clashed, a powerful force would surge forth and explode within the body, causing great damage to the meridians and internal organs. At best, it would lead to ki deviation. At worst, sudden death. However, Duanling Tian was naturally not comparable to ordinary martial artists, and he was not worried that the medicinal properties of the 2 spirit fruits would clash over dominance. He knew that even if the medicinal properties of the 2 spirit fruits simultaneously surged into his body, they would not be able to gain dominance, because within his body there was another medicinal power hidden, countless times more overbearing than the medicinal power of the 2 spirit fruits, the medicinal power of the nirvana pill. Indeed, just as the medicinal properties of the 2 spirit fruits merged into Duanling Tian's origin energy and were about to clash over dominance, an even more vast medicinal power appeared. The medicinal power of the nirvana pill, upon discovering the medicinal properties of the 2 spirit fruits, seemed to be invigorated and swept out from his dantian. After the overbearing medicinal power of the nirvana pill merged with the origin energy, it propelled the origin energy towards the medicinal properties of the 2 spirit fruits. Just as the medicinal properties of the 2 spirit fruits were about to clash, it crushed both of them in one fell swoop. Boom! A moment later, the origin energy, propelled by the nirvana pill's medicinal power, and the origin energy propelled by the 2 spirit fruits' medicinal power converged. The nirvana pill's medicinal power also gained a great deal of dominance, surging wildly within Duanling Tian's body. For a time, Duanling Tian only felt his meridians tremble, and even his internal organs began to vibrate. Duanling Tian didn't dare to hesitate and hurriedly calmed his mind. The 9 Dragon War Sovereign Art, Sword Dragon Transformation. As Duanling Tian began to cultivate with a calm mind, the origin energy that had been surging wildly within him returned to its proper course, circulating according to the cultivation method of the Sword Dragon Transformation, the 7th. Transformation of the 9 Dragon War Sovereign Art. At this rate, it won't be long before I can successfully break through to the void-prying stage 8th level. Feeling the rapidly flowing origin energy within his body, like surging waves, Duanling Tian's heart stirred, filled with excitement. Last time, with the help of Nanggong Chen's mental pressure, the overbearing medicinal power of the nirvana pill propelled his origin energy, allowing him to break through to the void-prying stage 7th level in one go. Not only that, it also opened up the bottleneck for him to reach the void-prying stage 8th level. This time, as the medicinal properties of the 2 spirit fruits merged into his body, the overbearing medicinal power of the nirvana pill joined in again. Although it was far from as fast as last time, it was still not slow. Moreover, in addition to the medicinal power of the nirvana pill, The medicinal power of the other two spirit fruits continuously merged into his origin energy, fusing with his origin energy. Boom! After what felt like not long, Duanling Tian found that the surging origin energy within his body broke through the bottleneck in one fell swoop, helping him successfully break through to the void prying stage 8th level. Upon breaking through to the void prying stage 8th level, Duanling Tian's origin energy underwent a tremendous qualitative change. Such powerful origin energy. After breaking through to the void prying stage 8th level, Duanling Tian's heart was greatly shaken, filled with joy. At the same time, the origin energy propelled by the Nirvana pill continued to surge rapidly, flowing regularly through Duanling Tian's meridians, helping him to further improve. Time quietly slipped away. In cultivation, Duanling Tian forgot the passage of time, but he could still clearly sense the changes within his body, since breaking. Through to the void prying stage 8th level, the overbearing medicinal power of the Nirvana pill continued to draw in the medicinal power of the other two spirit fruits, cultivating according to the cultivation method of the Sword Dragon transformation, the 7th transformation of the 9 Dragon War Sovereign Art. It was as if it would never know fatigue. After an unknown period of time, Duanling Tian clearly sensed that the bottleneck leading to the void prying stage 9th level had appeared. After another unknown period of time, he once again sensed that the origin energy surging forth from his meridians rapidly broke through the bottleneck leading to the void prying stage 9th level. Boom! A soft sound echoed within his body, causing Duanling Tian to involuntarily open his eyes, his face filled with excitement and agitation. I broke through! Void prying stage 9th level. As the milky white origin energy permeated around Duanling Tian's body, above the void of his head, the power of heaven and earth surged, converging into a clearly visible heaven and earth phenomenon. A total of 120 ancient horned dragon phantoms seemed to be declaring his current void-prying stage 9th level cultivation to everything around him. Suddenly, the origin energy around Duanling Tian's body trembled, then dissipated, without a trace. Wah! Almost at the same time, Duanling Tian's pupils constricted, his body trembled, and he spat out a mouthful of clotted blood. The clotted blood splattered on the floor in front of the bed, blooming like a red rose, dazzling and eye-catching. Without time to wipe away the bloodstains from the corner of his mouth, Duanling Tian took a deep breath and closed his eyes again. The 9 Dragon War Sovereign Art, Sword Dragon Transformation. Duanling Tian hurriedly circulated his cultivation method, bringing the restless origin energy back to the right path, fearing that he would be injured by it again. Just now, it was because he was busy testing the origin energy after his breakthrough, and forgot to continue guiding the restless origin energy. Once the restless origin energy lost control, it surged wildly within his body, further injuring his internal organs. The medicinal power of the Nirvana pill is already overbearing, and with the addition of the medicinal power of the other two spirit fruits, the three combined are far more than my body can handle, Duanling Tian thought to himself. However, Duanling Tian also noticed that the medicinal power of the two spirit fruits, after helping him break through 2 levels, was almost depleted and would probably be completely consumed soon. After an unknown period of time, Duanling Tian found that the medicinal power of the 2 spirit fruits was completely consumed. However, although the medicinal power of the spirit fruits was exhausted, the overbearing medicinal power of the Nirvana pill could not be withdrawn for a while and continued to propel the origin energy forward. After another period of time, Duanling Tian found that his cultivation had improved again. The bottleneck leading to the void transformation stage had actually appeared. Boom! The overbearing medicinal power of the Nirvana pill propelled the origin energy, and after circulating for 1 complete cycle within Duanling Tian's body, according to the Sword Dragon transformation method of the 9 Dragon War Sovereign Art, it crashed into the bottleneck. The bottleneck trembled, showing no signs of being broken through. Boom! 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 The origin energy, propelled by the overbearing medicinal power of the Nirvana pill, seemed to never tire, repeatedly impacting the final bottleneck of the void-prying stage. And the bottleneck, which initially showed no signs of being broken, gradually loosened, and later it almost broke through several times. Boom! The origin energy surged out, once again fiercely charging towards the bottleneck. The bottleneck loosened for a moment, almost breaking through, but in the end, it still didn't break, remaining firmly in place. 1 more time should be enough. Duanling Tian secretly took a deep breath, but to his dismay he found that the origin energy, propelled by the overbearing medicinal power of the Nirvana pill, slowed down after circulating for half a cycle. The overbearing medicinal power of the Nirvana pill came quickly and left just as quickly, instantly darting back into his dantian to hide. Let's try. While Duanling Tian smiled bitterly to himself, he independently propelled his origin energy to complete the remaining half cycle, continuing to charge towards the bottleneck leading to the void transformation stage. The already loosened bottleneck merely trembled slightly and was not broken through. Compared to the origin energy propelled by the overbearing medicinal power of the Nirvana pill, the origin energy that Duanling Tian was now independently propelling was like someone who hadn't eaten, its power pitifully weak. Just a little bit more. Even without the overbearing medicinal power of the Nirvana pill, circulating it 100 times or so should be enough to break through it and successfully reach the void transformation stage first level. Duanling Tian's heart stirred, and he continued to independently propel his origin energy to break through. A moment later, Duanling Tian propelled his origin energy for another 5 or 6 cycles. The bottleneck kept loosening, but it just couldn't be broken through by Duanling Tian's origin energy. Duanling Tian? Just as Duanling Tian wanted to continue, a familiar voice came from outside the room, making him snap back to reality and open his eyes, just a little bit more. Duanling Tian got out of bed with a wry smile, walked over to open the door, and looked at the young man outside. Shen Wei, why are you here? Standing outside the door was none other than Shen Wei, Kei Zheng's direct disciple. Back then, he met master and disciple Kei Zheng in Liuyun Town, and then came to this 5-element sect under their guidance. Speaking of which, he, Kei Zheng, and Shen Wei could be considered to have a destined connection. The Peak Master sent me to call you in Dubai, Shen Wei said with a smile. The Peak Master is looking for us? Duanling Tian was surprised. Had half a month already passed? Right. Shen Wei nodded. Now it's just you and Dubai. Once you're all here, we can head to Golden Peak to meet up with the Peak Masters of the other 4 peaks and their young disciples. Us? Are you going too? Duanling Tian was startled. Not just me, but 3 other Wood Peak disciples will also be going, Shen Wei said with a smile. Although I don't know where we're going, since our Wood Peak is the first peak of the 5-element sect, we have 6 spots, and the other peaks have fewer spots than us, so it shouldn't be anything bad. Wood Peak, 6 spots? Not the other peaks? Duanling Tian raised an eyebrow. He hadn't expected Wood Peak to send so many people this time, and he was also curious about how many spots the other peaks had. Yes, Shen Wei nodded again. The number of spots for this trip is based on the ranking of the 5 peaks. Our Wood Peak, as the first peak, has 6 spots. Golden Peak, as the second peak, has 5 spots. Fire Peak, as the third peak, has 4 spots. Water Peak, as the fourth peak, has 3 spots. Earth Peak at the bottom only has 2 spots. Shen Wei finished in one breath. So, this time, our 5-element sect will have 20 young disciples accompanying the 5 peak masters? Duanling Tian raised an eyebrow, muttering to himself, I'll go call Dubai, and then we'll meet up with the peak master and the others. After telling Duanling Tian, Shen Wei went to the ground floor of the 3-story pavilion, knocked on Huang Dabai's door, and called him out. When Huang Dabai came out, his face was flushed, and he looked energetic. Duanling Tian, want him to spar? After greeting Shen Wei, Huang Dabai looked at Duanling Tian, who was standing in midair, grinned, and asked confidently, How do you want to spar? Hearing Huang Dabai's words, Duanling Tian couldn't help but narrow his eyes, asking, With interest, how about this? I don't use the power of earth, and you don't use the wind intent. We'll just throw one punch at each other, barehanded. How about that? Huang Dabai's eyes lit up, eager to try. Dabai, you dare to challenge me. It seems your breakthrough this time is not small. Duanling Tian smiled. How about it? Do you dare? Huang Dabai showed a brilliant smile, his words filled with a hint of provocation. Why wouldn't I dare? However, let's move further away, lest we disturb Xiaoxuan's cultivation, Duanling Tian said, unafraid, while glancing at the master bedroom on the 2nd floor of the pavilion, a gentle look flashing in his eyes. Immediately after, he flew out, soaring towards the distant sky. Before Huang Dabai and Shen Wei, Duanling Tian gradually became a small black dot, suspended high in the distant sky. Good for you, Duanling Tian. You're really straightforward. Huang Dabai's smile grew wider, and he also flew out, following him. These two. The Peak Master is still waiting for them. Shen Wei smiled bitterly and shook his head, also following along. High in the sky, Duanling Tian and Huang Dabai stood facing each other, their gazes locked, emitting a strong fighting intent, ready to erupt at any moment. Huang Dabai stared at Duanling Tian, his nerves taut as if facing a formidable enemy. Duanling Tian, on the other hand, had a calm and composed expression, his gaze extremely peaceful, as if Huang Dabai posed no threat to him at all. Of course, in his heart, he indeed felt that Huang Dabai posed no threat. When Huang Dabai first came out, his keen spiritual power had immediately detected Huang Dabai's cultivation base, Void. Prying Stage 8. Void. Prying Stage 8, Level 9. Mid-tier Earth Intent. This was Huang Dabai's current strength. Dabai, make your move, Duan Tian said with a smile. Duan Tian, you better be careful. I am no longer the Huang Dabai of half a month ago. Huang Dabai saw Duan Tian so casual, clearly underestimating him, and his eyes couldn't help but narrow, as he reminded him in a deep voice, Come on! Duan Tian nodded, his smile unchanged. Seeing this, Huang Dabai's face darkened. Although Duan Tian was his friend, being so underestimated by him now, a hint of anger couldn't help, but rise in his heart, making him somewhat restless. Suddenly, Huang Dabai let out a roar, his elemental energy surging, and then merged with the rolling earth intent, transforming into streams of yellowish-brown power. A small portion of the yellowish-brown power condensed under Huang Dabai's feet, forming a thick stone platform. Bang! As soon as the stone platform appeared, Huang Dabai's legs had already kicked out like a sprinting leopard, landing on the stone platform, causing it to shatter into pieces, and then be pulverized by a vast force. The next moment, centered on the shattered stone platform, a vast, rolling wave of air swept out, turning into gusts of strong wind blowing in all directions, causing Shen Wei, who was standing nearby, to involuntarily narrow his eyes. Shen Wei's robes flapped in the wind, rustling loudly. At this moment, watching Huang Dabai, who had transformed into an elusive figure, rushing straight towards Duan Tian, Shen Wei's pupils couldn't help but contract, his heart filled with shock. When did Dabai's strength become so powerful? Before Shen Wei could react, he saw the phantom of 210 ancient horned dragons appearing in the sky as Huang Dabai flew out, and he couldn't help but be dumbfounded. Without a spiritual weapon, to display the power of 210 ancient horned dragons. He knew exactly what that meant. A void. Prying Stage. 8 martial artists could achieve this by using Level 9 Void Prying Intent. Void Prying Stage. 9 martial artists could also achieve this by using Level 8 Void Prying Intent. If it were a middle-aged expert from Wood Peak displaying such strength, he wouldn't be surprised. But the problem was, it was Huang Dabai who was displaying such strength. Huang Dabai, who had only displayed Void Prying, Stage 6 Cultivation, and Level 6 Earth Intent less than a month ago. The current Huang Dabai was like a completely different person from the Huang Dabai back then, giving him a sense of unfamiliarity. Bang! Before he could react, another loud bang came. At the same time, an even more terrifying wave of air swept out, raising gusts of vast wind that hit him, forcing him back several meters. What happened? Shen Wei struggled to open his involuntarily, narrowed eyes, and soon saw 2 figures, 2 young men, colliding in the distance. Now the 2 were facing each other with a punch. The 2 people in front of him were originally considered his acquaintances. However, at this moment, he felt as if he was meeting these 2 people for the first time. Besides the 210 ancient horned dragon phantoms appearing above the head of the robust and tall young man, there were also 220 ancient horned dragon phantoms appearing above the head of the purple-clad young man, the power of 220 ancient horned dragons. Void Prying. Stage 9 martial artist. Level 9, Void Prying. Intent, Duan Tian He. At some point, Shen Wei was so shocked that he opened his mouth staring at the purple figure in the distance, dumbfounded, unable to recover for a long time. Boom! Another loud bang came, startling Shen Wei, causing him to shiver. He clearly saw the dense purple lightning bolts wrapped around Duan Tian's fist sweeping out, easily crushing the yellowish-brown power wrapped around Huang Dabai's fist. Immediately after, Duan Tian leaned forward. Huang. Dabai, on the other hand, was sent flying by a punch like an arrow shot from a bow. Whoa! Huang Dabai, who was sent flying, had a flushed face, his blood surging, and he couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of clotted blood. After a moment, Huang Dabai flew dozens of meters before stopping. After taking a healing pill, Huang Dabai's injuries recovered by 70 to 80%. Of course, this was also because Duan Tian had held back. Otherwise, Huang Dabai would not have suffered only such minor injuries. Duan Tian, you pervert monster. You actually broke through to Void Prying Stage 9. Do those 2 spirit fruits have such great medicinal power? After Huang Dabai recovered, he couldn't help but curse loudly, his voice getting softer and softer towards the end. The reason he dared to challenge Duan Tian just now was purely because he felt he understood the medicinal power of the 2 spirit fruits given by Wood Peak Master Chi Yu. In his opinion, Duanling Tian's cultivation base had only broken through to Void Prying Stage 7 during the Five Peaks battle, less than a month ago. With the medicinal power of those two spirit fruits, even if Duanling Tian completely absorbed and digested them, he would at most only advance to Void Prying Stage 8 Peak, and it would be impossible to break through to Void Prying Stage 9. However, today, the strength Duanling Tian displayed made him deeply realize how wrong and ridiculous his previous thoughts were. You thought I hadn't broken through to Void Prying Stage 9? Hearing Huang Dabai's words, Duanling Tian couldn't help but be startled. Nonsense, Huang Dabai said grumpily. If I had known you had broken through to Void Prying Stage 9, no one would fight you. I don't have a masochistic fetish. Towards the end, Huang Dabai looked dejected. Seeing Huang Dabai's depressed look, Duanling Tian couldn't help but laugh, his smile bright and radiant. Duanling Tian, Dabai. You? When did your strength become so powerful? Shen Wei flew forward, staring at the two, dumbfounded. Did your void-prying intent break through to level 9 in the Profound Enlightenment Array? Also, Duanling Tian, you actually comprehended lightning intent? At this moment, Shen Wei had too many questions and confusions in his heart. That's right, our intent broke through in the Profound Enlightenment Array. However, my mid-tier Earth intent was indeed raised to level 9 in the Profound Enlightenment Array. It increased by a full 3 levels. Huang Dabai grinned. You mean you now comprehend level 9 mid-tier Earth intent? Shen Wei stared at Huang Dabai with wide eyes, his face filled with shock. Although he had long heard that the Profound Enlightenment Array was not simple, he never expected it to be so terrifying. Allowing Huang Dabai's level 6 mid-tier Earth intent to increase by a full 3 levels in one go. Not bad, Huang Danyu's face was full of pride. In the Profound Array, I managed to raise my 6th level intermediate Earth concept to 9th level Earth concept in one go. At this point, Huang Danyu looked at Duanling Tian again, his smile growing even more triumphant. In this regard, I'm much stronger than Duanling Tian. His intermediate Thunder concept was already at the 7th level, and in the Profound Array, it only rose to the 9th level, only 2 levels. Seeing Huang Danyu trying to balance things out again, Duanling Tian shook his head, too lazy to bother with him. I've long heard that the Profound Array is extraordinary, but I never expected it to be so powerful. It actually allowed your void-prying concepts to reach the 9th level, Shen Wei exclaimed with envy. Immediately after, Shen Wei looked at Duanling Tian and said with a wry smile, Duan, Ling Tian, I initially thought you had only comprehended the 3rd level intermediate wind concept, but I didn't expect you to have also comprehended the 7th level thunder concept. Before this, he, like most people, believed that Duanling Tian's strength was due to his innate ability. Without his innate ability, Duanling Tian probably wouldn't have ranked among the outstanding young disciples of the Five Element sect. But now, he deeply realized how foolish and ridiculous his previous thoughts were. Duanling Tian, this guy is quite good at hiding things. Huang Danyu looked at Duanling Tian, his eyes flashing, his gaze seemingly able to penetrate everything. Now, even if he were to display a 3rd void-prying concept besides his thunder concept and wind concept, I wouldn't be surprised. Huang Danyu's words caused Duanling Tian's lips to twitch imperceptibly. Although he knew Huang Danyu was just speaking casually, a slight ripple still stirred in his heart. He had indeed comprehended a 3rd void-prying concept. Not only a 3rd void-prying concept, he had even comprehended a 4th void-prying concept. His Earth concept and Sword concept were also now void-prying concepts. However, Shen Wei didn't take Huang Danyu's words to heart. In his opinion, for Duanling Tian's age, to be able to comprehend 2 such powerful, void-prying concepts was already astonishing. It was impossible for him to comprehend a 3rd void-prying concept, even if Duanling Tian was an anomaly. Your cultivation. Soon, Shen Wei glanced at Huang Danyu, then at Duanling Tian, his face full of confusion. Our cultivation is all thanks to the spiritual fruits the Peak Master gave us. Those spiritual fruits were cultivation resources distributed by the sect, Huang Danyu said with a smile. Shen Wei then understood, his envy growing, but without a trace of jealousy. He knew in his heart that everything Duanling Tian and Huang Danyu had gained was well-deserved, without Duanling Tian and Huang. Danyu? Woodpeak would never have escaped its fate of continuously being at the bottom, let alone becoming the #1 peak of the Five Element sect. And if Woodpeak couldn't escape its fate of being at the bottom, even if the sect obtained spiritual fruits, they wouldn't be allocated to Woodpeak. Let's go, the Peak Master is still waiting for us. Shen Wei called out to Duanling Tian and Huang Danyu, then flew out. Duanling Tian nodded and followed Shen Wei with Huang Danyu, flying towards the distant sky. Soon, Duanling Tian saw Woodpeak Master Qi Yu again. Behind Qi Yu were 3 other Woodpeak disciples, 3 young disciples around 35 years old, who were clearly also going to the Martial Emperor's hidden treasure this time. Duanling Tian's spiritual force swept out, and he quickly detected the cultivation of the 3. All were at the void prying stage 4th level, comparable to Shen Wei in the past. As early as when Shen Wei came to find him, he had noticed. Shen Wei's cultivation had now broken, through to the void prying stage 5th level. You're here? Seeing Duanling Tian and Huang Dan Yu, Qi Yu, who had originally been calm, rarely showed a slight smile. Peak Master. Duanling Tian and Huang Dan Yu greeted Qi Yu with smiles, then stood beside him. Senior brother Duanling Tian, senior brother Huang Dan Yu. At this moment, the 3 Woodpeak disciples standing in the air behind Qi Yu respectfully greeted Duanling Tian and Huang Dan Yu in unison, making the 2 of them feel a little overwhelmed. These 3 Woodpeak disciples were all older than them. Let's go. Qi Yu took Duanling Tian and the other 6, flew out, and headed straight for Gold Peak. A moment later, they arrived in the void outside Gold Peak. There, 2 groups of people were already standing separately in the air, gathered together. When they saw Duanling Tian and the others from Wood Peak arrive, the gazes of the 2 groups converged, quickly locking onto 2 individuals among the Wood Peak group, Duanling Tian, Qi Yu. When Duanling Tian first arrived at Wood Peak, he killed a direct disciple of a Wood Peak elder, and then forced that Wood Peak elder to cripple his own cultivation. From that moment on, Duanling Tian's name had already spread throughout the entire 5-element sect. Later, during the 5 Peaks battle, Duanling Tian became famous in one battle. He defeated the Nangong brothers, who were the strongest among the contemporary young generation of the 5-element sect before he joined, and won first place in both the individual and team battles of the 5 Peaks battle, helping Wood Peak become the #1 peak of the 5-element sect. Now, Duanling Tian's reputation in the 5-element sect was soaring. He even overshadowed the Nangong brothers of Gold Peak. Some 5-element sect disciples even privately regarded Duanling Tian as the new #1 powerhouse among the sect's contemporary young generation, because he could overpower the Nangong brothers of Gold Peak. Qi Yu, the Wood Peak Master, had been dormant for many years, but during the 5 Peaks battle, Skioti struck like lightning, twice severely injuring Fire Peak Master Cha Bai. At that moment, the 5-element sect disciples present finally realized Qi Yu, who was known as the second strongest person in the 5-element sect, was not merely boasting. He truly possessed that strength. From that moment on, Qi Yu also became a hot topic among many disciples of the 5-element sect. Peak Master Qi Yu. The 2 groups were the people from Water Peak and Earth Peak who had arrived earlier. Water Peak Master Yu Fang and Earth Peak Master Tian Gu smiled and came forward to greet Qi Yu. Peak Master Yu Fang, Peak Master Tian Gu, Qi. Yet responded with a smile to each, polite and courteous. Duanling Tian stood to the side, his gaze sweeping over the people from Water Peak and Earth Peak, and he found that apart from Yu Fang and Tian Gu, the 2 Peak Masters, only 5 young disciples had come from both peaks combined. Of the 3 from Water Peak, besides Tan Huan and the female Water Peak disciple he had met twice, there was an additional female Wood Peak disciple. Earth Peak only had 2 people, both familiar faces. They were Tian Zhen and the male Earth Peak disciple who had also met Duanling Tian twice. The total number of young disciples from both peaks was even less than the group of Wood Peak disciples, including Duanling Tian. The people from Fire Peak are here. Suddenly, a Wood Peak disciple couldn't help but exclaim in a low voice. Immediately, except for Duanling Tian and Qi Yu, everyone else present looked at the 5 figures flying in the distance. These 5 people were led by one person. The leader was an old man dressed in a red robe. It was Fire Peak Master Cha Bai. Behind Cha Bai were 4 other Fire Peak disciples, led by Hu Fei, who followed closely behind Cha Bai. Since everyone is here, let's depart. Just then, before Yu Fang and Tian Gu could greet Cha Bai, a loud voice came from the direction of Gold Peak, attracting everyone's attention. Duanling Tian looked over and saw a total of 6 figures flying from the direction of Gold Peak. Among them, the Gold Peak Master, who was also the 5-element sect master, Guo Chong, was at the forefront. Behind Guo Chong, the Nangong brothers, Nangong Chen and Nangong Yi, followed closely, one active and one calm, displaying extraordinary demeanor. Behind the 2 of them were 3 other Gold Peak disciples, all young disciples around 35 years old, who were clearly also going to the Martial Emperor's hidden treasure together, Sect Master. After Guo Chong appeared, the people from the other 4 peaks bowed slightly, either nodding or bending at the waist. Most bowed at the waist, with only the 4 Peak Masters and Duanling Tian being exceptions, merely nodding in greeting. 4. A moment, Duanling Tian, standing among the group of 5-element sect disciples, stood out like a crane among chickens when the other 5-element sect disciples bowed, attracting attention. If it were another person, Guochong might have been slightly displeased. But when he realized that person was Duanling Tian, he completely lost his temper. In his opinion, Duanling Tian, as an anomaly, being able to temporarily join the 5-element sect, was already considered a blessing for their 5-element sect. As for those formalities, Duanling Tian had the right to ignore them. Go. Guochong nodded to everyone, then let out a soft cry. As soon as his voice fell, Guochong took the 5 Gold Peak disciples and was the first to fly towards the southwest. Because he had to take care of the Gold Peak disciples, he deliberately slowed down. Go. At this moment, Qi, Yu, Yufang, Tiangu, and Chabai, the 4 of them, each called out to the young disciples they brought, and closely followed the group from Gold Peak, like shadows. Is the Martial Emperor's hidden treasure in the southwest? Flying southwest all the way, Duanling Tian couldn't help but narrow his eyes, muttering, "That direction is between the area south of the northern desert and the area west of the northern desert. It's a bit closer to the 4 major forces in the area south of the northern desert. South of the northern desert, ancient city of the Great Desert, Azure Wolf Fort. In an underground palace within the inner fort, 5 people stood before a high platform, gazing at the mist-shrouded platform before them, their eyes gleaming. It's almost 3 hours. The only middle-aged man among the 5 said in a low voice, 'The profound array is about to close, and the 9 of them should be coming out.' One of the old men among the 5 suddenly brightened his eyes, looking at the mist on the high platform with anticipation, seemingly waiting for something. Time passed quietly. What's going on? It's been 4 hours already. Why hasn't the profound array closed on its own? This is a bit abnormal. Could the profound array have malfunctioned temporarily? The 5 people present looked at each other, their faces filled with confusion. The 5 people present were none other than the 5 vice fort masters of Kangwolf Fort. Among the 5 vice fort masters, Luo Fu was the leader. Next were Meng Li, Ning Kan, Yu Kang, and Feng Wei. Feng Wei was Luo Fu's disciple and the only middle-aged person among the 5 vice fort masters. The other 4 were all old men past their 70s. At this moment, the 5 of them looked incredibly grave. They knew the profound transformation array all too well. It would automatically close after a maximum of about 3 hours. At that time, the people inside would come out, and their comprehension of concepts would have improved to some extent. But now, 4 hours had passed, and the profound transformation array still showed no signs of closing, as if something had gone wrong, causing their hearts to pound with anxiety. Could something really have gone wrong? Feng Wei's face was extremely solemn. It shouldn't. The profound transformation array is an inscription array personally set up by a Martial Emperor powerhouse. Logically, nothing should go wrong. Luo Fu shook his head, his wise eyes gleaming as they fixed on the mist on the high platform. Something we don't know about must have happened inside. Although Meng Li, Ning Kan, and Yu Kang didn't speak, they stared intently at the profound transformation array on the high platform, their faces subtly tinged with worry. In contrast to the agitation of the 5 vice fort masters outside the profound transformation array, it was peaceful inside, with 9 young talents sitting cross-legged in various spots, calmly comprehending concepts. Around the bodies of the 9 young talents, wisps of materialized concepts were clearly rising. Some were wind concept, some fire concept, some water concept, some thunder concept, or earth concept. The above 5 types all belonged to natural concepts. There was also another person whose body was surrounded by wisps of sword-shaped energy, which was the materialized sword concept. 8 of the young talents sat there like statues, completely motionless. Only one person, his brows were sometimes tightly furrowed, and sometimes relaxed. This was a young man in white, appearing to be in his early 30s. Although his eyes were closed, his face was exceptionally stern, especially the black flame mark on his brow. Just one glance was enough to startle anyone. The black flame mark at this moment seemed to have completely come alive, burning brightly. "Old goody, how did you do it?" At the same time, deep within the white-clothed youth's mind, a voice suddenly rang out, filled with astonishment. Deep within the white-clothed youth's mind, near his solidified soul, 2 vast concept powers were gathered like 2 swirling clouds. One type of concept power was azure, and the other was crimson. These were precisely the concept powers corresponding to wind concept and fire concept. At the same time, a cold, hoarse, and ancient low hum suddenly exploded in the white-clothed youth's mind. It's merely an inscription array set up by a mere Martial Emperor realm inscription master. How could it possibly trouble me? Ghost fire. Although my remnant soul is far from its peak, it's still very easy to extract some concept power from this inscription array and forcibly infuse it into your body. If I were at my peak, even extracting all the concept power refined from those wind concept fragments and fire concept fragments, and infusing it into your body would be no difficult feat. By the end, the hoarse, ancient voice was filled with a hint of disdain. His words made it sound as if he looked down upon the profound transformation array set up by the Martial Emperor powerhouse he was currently in. Yes. What Martial? Emperor powerhouse? In front of you, old guy? They're not even worth mentioning. The voice that had spoken first now had a hint of flattery. Then he changed the subject. Old guy, with these 2 streams of concept power you've extracted, to what level can my wind concept and fire concept be elevated? Void transformation? Concept. The hoarse, ancient voice came again. Void transformation concept? Old guy, you're not joking, are you? The former's voice was filled with shock, since you fortuitously obtained that demon sealing tablet fragment, and my remnant soul began residing in your body. When have I ever lied to you? The hoarse, ancient voice clearly held a hint of anger. No, you haven't. Old guy, please don't take what just happened to heart. I just found it incredibly unbelievable. I was too excited. The former's voice was somewhat flustered. The ancient voice hummed again, continuing, Zishang, my boy, remember, what I can give you far exceeds your imagination. As long as you remember your promise to me and help me reshape my complete soul in the future, I will not treat you unfairly, the ancient voice added. Yes. Zishang's voice hurriedly responded, not daring to be even slightly negligent. All right. I'm returning control of your body to you now. You can personally merge the 2 streams of concept power I helped you extract. After the hoarse, ancient voice finished speaking, it completely fell silent. At the same time, the black flame mark on Zishang's brow as he sat cross-legged vanished into thin air, as if it had never existed, appearing exceptionally strange. Zishang slowly opened his eyes, a sharp glint flashing within them, and he muttered coldly to himself, Duanling Tian, next time we meet, I'll give you a big surprise. Even if old guy can't directly act against you, I alone am enough to destroy you. As long as I get your demon sealing tablet, my future, Zishang's future, will be bright. Even those Martial Emperor powerhouses on Cloud Continent will eventually be trampled under my feet. By the end of his monologue, a sinister smile appeared on Zishang's face, and his laughter only completely ceased after a moment. Immediately after, Zishang closed his eyes again, going to merge the 2 concept powers deep within his mind. Around Zishang's body, vast flames rose, accompanied by gusts of azure strong winds. The fire, fueled by the wind, grew even more rampant and surged. Time passed quietly. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. It's been 3 days. The profound transformation array still hasn't closed on its own. In the underground palace of Kangwol Fort's inner fort, beside the mist-shrouded high platform, Ning Kan paced back and forth, his face filled with worry for his direct disciple, Zishang. We've waited 3 days. There's no need to rush now. Luo Fu, standing nearby, said. However, even though he said so, his eyes still held a hint of worry. Suddenly, Luo Fu's brow furrowed, as if he had noticed something. He gazed intently at the profound transformation array on the high platform, which was the large expanse of mist in his sight. The mist was stirring, showing signs of contracting. Is the profound transformation array about to close? At this moment, Ning Kan stopped pacing. The other 3 vice fort masters of Kangwol Fort, who had been sitting cross-legged and cultivating, also opened their eyes and stood up, looking together at the continuously shrinking mist on the high platform. Soon, the mist disappeared, and 9 figures sitting cross-legged on the high platform appeared before them, one by one, 8 young men and 1 young woman. If Duanling Tian were here, he would surely recognize at a glance that the young woman was Ye Ling, whom he had met once at the 10 Dynasty martial competition, the strongest of the contemporary young generation of the great Qing dynasty. After the 10 Dynasty martial competition ended, Ye Ling stayed at Kangwol Fort and received intensive training. Her cultivation, compared to before, was vastly different. Soon, the 9 of them opened their eyes one after another and woke up. Zishang, how has your wind concept improved? Ningken was the first to look at the young man in white, who was his direct disciple, Zishang, and asked eagerly, Master, Zishang did not disappoint you. Zishang smiled faintly, and the air around his body stirred, then emitted waves of scorching heat. A moment later, vast flames rose, enveloping Zishang, completely making him appear like a formidable fire giant, majestic and imposing. Whoosh! At the same time, above the void, the power of heaven and earth stirred, converging into a phenomenon of heaven and earth. Phantom ancient horned dragons gradually materialized. 10 heads, 20 heads, 30 heads. The number was still increasing. Under the dumbfounded gaze of the crowd, the number of phantom ancient horned dragons finally stopped increasing, completely settling there. 200 ancient horned dragon powers. Luofu gasped, saying with a look of horror, "First level high-grade fire concept? Zishang, you actually comprehended void transformation concept? Void transformation concept." Immediately, the other 8 young disciples of Kangwolf Fort were all petrified, staring blankly at the 200 phantom ancient horned dragons above Zishang's head, unable to recover for a long time. Zishang, your fire concept before entering the profound transformation array seemed to be only void entry concept, right? At this moment, Ningkan asked somewhat distractedly, "Void entry concept?" As soon as Ningkan said this, Luo Fu and the other 4 Vice Fort Masters also became petrified. Before entering the profound transformation array, the concept was only void entry concept. After coming out, it elevated to void transformation concept. Wouldn't that mean it crossed void insight concept? Yes. Zishang nodded. Seeing the stunned and horrified gazes of everyone, he felt a surge of secret satisfaction, thoroughly enjoying the feeling. Immediately after, with a thought, a terrifying azure-strong wind condensed around his body, continuously merging into the scorching flames. In an instant, the flames surged, rising even higher. At the same time, above Zishang's head in the void, first 400 phantom ancient horned dragons appeared, followed by another 100 phantom ancient horned dragons, 400 ancient horned dragon powers, 3rd level high-grade wind concept. Those 100 ancient horned dragon powers, is that the power boosted by the 1st level high-grade fire concept, borrowing wind to fuel fire? Similar to earth concept utilizing earth power? The 5 Vice Fort Masters of Kangwolf Fort stared blankly at the 700 ancient horned dragon phantoms above Zishang's head, their hearts filled with nothing but shock. Triple-level advanced wind profound concept, comparable to the power of 400 ancient horned dragons. 1st-level advanced fire profound concept, comparable to the power of 200 ancient horned dragons. Additionally, through fire borrowing wind's momentum, an extra 100 ancient horned dragons power was added, all combined. 700 ancient horned dragons power. The other 8 Kangwolf Fort disciples present were all dumbfounded, unable to recover for a long time. After a while, one Kangwolf Fort disciple came to his senses, couldn't help but swallow hard, and murmured, "Didn't the Vice Fort Masters say that after we entered the profound array, low-level void transformation profound concept might be able to improve by 2 or 3 levels, but high-level void transformation profound concept could only improve by 1 or 2 levels?" As he spoke, he looked at Zishang, perhaps there was a problem with the profound array. I felt like I stayed in there for more than 3 hours. Maybe our improvements are as great as Zishang's. Another Kangwolf Fort disciple said, hastily mobilizing his profound concept. While doing so, he said, "Before I entered the profound array, I had comprehended 5th level mid-tier lightning profound concept. If there are no surprises, I should have now also comprehended void transformation profound concept." For a moment, everyone's gaze, including Zishang's, fell upon the space above this Kangwolf Fort disciple's head, where the power of heaven and earth was turbulent and brewing, and the heaven and earth anomaly gradually took shape. A cold sneer appeared at the corner of Zishang's mouth. This waste, did he even deserve to be compared to him? Soon, ancient horned dragon phantoms appeared one after another above the Kangwolf Fort disciple's head, their number continuously increasing, finally settling at 80. 80 ancient horned dragons' power represented 7th level. Void transformation profound concept. 7th level mid-tier lightning profound concept. How is that possible? Looking at the 80 ancient horned dragon phantoms above his head, the Kangwolf Fort disciple's face sank. The gap between this and Zishang is too great, isn't it? At this moment, the remaining Kangwolf Fort disciples, including Yeling, one by one tested and displayed their profound concepts. In the end, they found that the greatest improvement among them was only 3 levels, with one Kangwolf Fort disciple's 4th level void transformation profound concept, increasing to 6th level. For a moment, gazes converged on Zishang, filled with surprise and incomprehension. A triumphant smile appeared on Zishang's face. He thoroughly enjoyed this feeling. It's just a pity that my cultivation is still a bit lacking. I hope I can successfully break through to 7th level void transformation realm when I enter the Martial Emperor's secret treasure. Zeishang's heart stirred as he thought to himself, sword and saber sect. As one of the 4 major powers in the area south of the northern desert, the sword and saber sect's base was located in 2 adjacent vast valleys. Of the 2 valleys, one was Saber Valley, belonging to the Saber Division. The other was Sword Valley, belonging to the Sword Division. And in the middle of Saber Valley and Sword Valley, there was a towering hill on which stood a continuous complex of buildings, which was where the high-ranking members of the Sword and Saber sect usually lived and cultivated. Currently, in a palace on the hill, 5 people stood before a high platform. Above the high platform, mist enveloped. Among the 5, there were 2 old men and 3 middle-aged men. If Duanling Tian were here, he would surely recognize these 3 middle-aged men at a glance. The Vice Sect Master of the Sword Division, Jian Shisen, the Vice Sect Master of the Saber Division, Dao Wu, and the Elder of the Sword Division, Feng Wu Dao. However, Feng Wu Dao's expression was somewhat solemn now, staring intently at the mist on the high platform, a bit nervous. 2 Sect Masters. Feng Wu Dao couldn't help but look at the 2 old men and asked with a solemn expression, "This profound array, will it truly not harm the fire spirit physique?" Logically, it shouldn't. Moreover, in the past, there has never been a case of an innate spirit, congenital spirit physique, having an accident after entering the profound array. One of the tall and robust old men shook his head. "Don't worry, since Tian Wu is a congenital spirit physique, being in the profound array, which is filled with profound concept power, will only bring benefits, not harm," another thin old man said. The 2 old men were the 2 sect masters of the Sword and Saber sect, in charge of the Saber Division and Sword Division, respectively. It's just a pity that Tian Wu can't consume spirit fruits. Otherwise, with her comprehension of fire profound concept and her astonishing strength, she would definitely achieve great things in that Martial Emperor's secret treasure. Jian Shisen sighed. Feng Wu Dao and the 2 old men fell silent upon hearing this. Feng Tianwu's comprehension of fire profound concept was extremely astonishing, yet her cultivation had only reached 3rd level void transformation, realm so far not even as good as many sword and saber sect disciples. If it weren't for her astonishing fire profound concept, she wouldn't even be qualified to enter the profound array and enjoy the baptism of hundreds of profound concept fragments. It's almost 3 hours. Dao Wu, who was standing by, his eyes suddenly lit up, looking expectantly at the profound array that enveloped the high platform. Hearing Dao Wu's words, the other 4 looked together at the profound array. After a moment, the mist on the high platform receded, revealing its true appearance. 10 young men and women sat cross-legged in various places, and after a moment they all woke up one by one. "Where?" Looking at the graceful figure, slowly standing up, a joyful smile appeared on Feng Wu Dao's face, and his suspended heart finally settled down. "Father." Feng Tianwu heard the voice, looked at Feng Wu Dao, and a smile appeared on her captivating face. "You worried?" "It's good that you're fine. It's good that you're fine." Feng Wu Dao shook his head. At this moment, the power of heaven and earth surged in the void, and the winds and clouds changed. It was the other 9 sword and saber sect disciples, including Su Li, Long Yun, and Zhang Shouyang, who one by one displayed their profound concepts, activating the power of heaven and earth, and evolving heaven and earth anomalies. Their profound concepts had improved by 2 or 3 levels, more or less. "Tian Wu, let's see how much your fire profound concept has improved." The thin old man looked kindly at Feng Tianwu. "Yes, Sect Master." Hearing the Sword Division Sect Master's words, Feng Tianwu dared not be negligent in the slightest. Her red dress billowed as if transforming into a blazing flame. "Su Li, are you really not interested in this, Feng Tianwu? If you're not interested, then I, your senior brother, won't be polite." A hint of fervent desire clearly rose in the eyes of a green-clad youth standing beside Su Li, as he gazed at Feng Tianwu, wishing he could possess her. "Senior brother Lian, I've already told you. Tianwu's heart belongs to someone." Su Li frowned and said, "That person is not someone you can afford to provoke." "Are you talking about that Duanling Tian, who was supposed to come to our sword and saber sect with you, but was pursued and went missing by people from Kangwell Fort on the way?" The green-clad youth sneered. "Not to mention whether he's dead or not now. Even if he's not dead, I'm still not afraid of him. What first in the 10 dynasties? Martial competition? That kind of trashy martial competition is not worth mentioning at all." Hearing the green-clad youth curse Duanling Tian, Su Li's face sank. His eyes flashed with cold light and his fists clenched. But he ultimately did not act out, not to mention that this green-clad youth's status was not low, even his strength already far surpassed his current self. His cultivation was at 8th level void transformation realm, and he had comprehended 9th level sword profound concept. He was not someone his current self could compare to, because everyone's attention was currently on Feng Tianwu. No one else heard the conversation between Su Li and the green-clad youth. Whoosh. At the same time, around Feng Tianwu's body, waves of scorching aura swept out, stirring up gusts of hot wind that blew in all directions. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. The hot wind, carrying a scorching aura, caused the faces of several weaker sword and saber sect disciples to change, turning slightly pale. Under everyone's watchful eyes, Feng Tianwu was completely enveloped by a soaring flame, which, combined with her red robe, made her appear like a fire spirit. Whoosh! Above the void, the power of heaven and earth surged, and a heaven and earth anomaly appeared accordingly. After a moment, tens to hundreds of ancient horned dragon phantoms appeared. Ninth level mid-tier fire profound concept. Looking at the 100 ancient horned dragon phantoms above Feng Tianwu's head, everyone present was petrified, their eyes filled with disbelief. Soon, they came back to their senses, their faces changing drastically. The reason they recovered was that after 100 ancient horned dragon phantoms appeared, as the flames on Feng Tianwu's body continued to rise, another 100 ancient horned dragon phantoms appeared. 200 ancient horned dragon phantoms appeared before everyone's eyes in an instant. First level advanced fire profound concept. Including the 2 great sect masters of the Saber Division and Sword Division, at this moment, everyone's pupils couldn't help but contract, their faces filled with horror. Before Feng Tianwu entered the profound array, she seemed to have only comprehended 5th level mid-tier fire profound concept. And now, having emerged from the profound array, she had actually comprehended 1st level advanced fire profound concept. When they saw the 200 ancient horned dragon phantoms turn into 300 ancient horned dragon phantoms after a moment, everyone was numb, staring blankly at the scene before them. Second level advanced fire profound concept? Su, Li gasped. No, it's not just 2nd level advanced fire profound concept. The number of ancient horned dragon phantoms is still increasing. Zhang Shouyong's eyes widened as he muttered. Indeed, the number of ancient horned dragon phantoms above Feng Tianwu's head was still increasing. The 300 ancient horned dragon phantoms quickly turned into 400 ancient horned dragon phantoms. Immediately after, they turned into 500 ancient horned dragon phantoms, and it was still continuing to rise. Unconsciously, everyone was numb. Is this the fire spirit physique? Could it be that she absorbed all the profound concept power that the fire profound concept fragments were refined into by the profound array? Jian Shisan looked blankly, muttering to himself.